of the Go-To. I'm a producer and I'm an actress. And I have the awesome honor of introducing and interviewing a really cool human that I get to call my friend, a colleague, and an all-around good guy. He's done it all from garment industry exec, fashion designer, fashion photographer, a magazine publisher, wildlife photographer, film director. So without further ado, I introduce you to Mr. Ejaz Khan. Hello, welcome.
Wow, you make it sound so big and enormous. I'm just a creator. I love creating, and I think we should leave it at that. That's great.
So you were born and raised in Bombay, India. Your
Uh-huh.
mother your mother was a makeup artist. Your father was a well-known film director, and your brother is a film director as well. Basically, you grew up around film. Tell us about that, growing up in Bombay and being in the arts.
Yeah, my dad was accomplished, mom accomplished, my uncles, my aunts, everybody, the whole family was in the movie industry. So I didn't pay much attention to it. It was happening and I was there, and that was the end of that. So I didn't think about it. But I do have to say that the things that I learned were more subconscious, like going to dad's sets, like going to my uncle's sets, or speaking or listening to them have conversations at home. That was such a subconscious learning effort where I didn't realize I knew certain things until I started to practice them myself.
Did your family assume that you were just gonna follow their legacy and go into film automatically at a younger age, or how did that come about?
I wasn't the chosen one, so to speak,
Uh,
for several reasons. My brother was taller, my brother was lighter, my brother still is a very, very good-looking man. So when I was growing up, dad kind of made it kind of clear that my brother was to get into film industry and so on, and
mm.
do the creative bit, acting, directing, and so on. And as far as I was concerned, I was supposed to be doing the business side of things. Why? Because I was shorter and all of it, right?
Mm.
I didn't even resent it. I was like, okay, this is what it is. Dad, brothers got it all, no big deal. He's an amazing looking guy. He's got the appetite for the film industry. And I didn't. I just was the black sheep, so to speak. So
Okay, so that was all in India. So when or what made you decide to come to the States, to America?
at the age of 18, I decided I wanted to have my own clothing store.
Mm.
And I don't know how it happened. I don't know financially how it happened. I don't know how it happened, period. But it was just something that I wanted to do and I did it. I asked a bunch of people to help me. My aunt was one of them. And she let me take one of her bedrooms and convert it into a small mini factory. I mean, I took help from her. I took help from another gentleman that I met, Shiraz, I believe. He's not in India anymore, but he helped me quite a bit. I mean, there was so much help pouring out of all places. So I forget the year, but the building caught fire,
Oh.
and I just lost everything. There was nothing there, and at this point, I was still 18 or 19 years old. I wasn't home. I had not stayed home for a while, so I was still under my aunt's roof, so to speak, and I was doing the factory bit there, creating the clothing, selling the clothing in the store, and once that store vanished,
Mm.
in the fire. I had built my stores into three stores. So at that point, when it did catch fire, I had two other stores. One was a shoe store and a bag store, and the other one was another clothing store. So I had two clothing stores and one shoe store and a bag store. But one,
Okay, so I didn't even know that. Okay, I didn't even realize how accomplished you were as a teenager. You kind of like held out on me because we've known each other for a few years already. I don't think you were such an entrepreneur at such a young age. My goodness.
I didn't think about it. I didn't think I wanted to do XYZ. It just was happening to me. And
Wow.
that's how I'm going to say it. Because, you know, at the age of 17, who thinks of putting a clothing store together? And who thinks of putting a a bag store and a another clothing store? I didn't think about it. It just kept happening, and I was ready to work. That I know. So I worked myself, and people saw that, and they invested in me and helped me through this. It wasn't all my doing, basically. I used to just love, love, love clothing, and I
Mm,
would love to see the people happy after they wore what I was giving them, what I was selling to them. So
that's beautiful.
yeah, so once that died and I lost everything, there was no such thing as insurance.
Mm,
And then I'm saying to myself, what should I do? And it was my main store, the first store that actually was on fire, and I lost it all. I'm like, what do I do? Do I start here? I always desired to get away from India. Don't ask me why. I had no clue. But the choices were go to London, go to Australia, or come to the United States. And I decided, if I'm going to do something, let me just start and go to the United States and start from scratch.
so you come to the United States. Go. What happens?
Yeah, so I landed in New York, petrified because I don't have and I didn't have any, uncle, aunt, sister, friends. I had absolutely nobody. So I landed at JFK and I'm like, now what am I gonna do?
Wow.
I didn't think about it. Like I said, I'm the kind of person, I like doing things. I don't think the negative of doing things. I just do it because I assume everything is going to be positive. All my efforts are going to some way somehow work out. So I never think of, if I go to America and I don't have a place to say, what am I going to do? So stupid, but it wasn't a thought. So I landed at JFK and I got my, not my permit, but it was a tourist visa to stay.
Okay.
And I came out and I'm like, where do I go? So I stop a taxi and I say to him, I say, take me to the place where there are these tall buildings, because I had seen those buildings in the movies, right? So he said, where do you want to go? That's a big place. I'm like, I don't know. I have $300 in my pocket and I'm here to stay.
So
So
you came to New York City with $300.
he was driving and he stopped and he turned around and he looked at me. He's like, you have $300 and you want to stay in New York? I'm like, yeah, like, very innocently, of course. I mean, that's a lot of money. So he says, your taxi from here to Manhattan is going to cost you about $40, $45. And I'm like, okay. So I did the math quickly and I said, I can spend about $15 a day or $10 a day thinking that, I'll land a job in as soon as I reach Manhattan. No problem. Didn't think about what happens if. I still don't think what happens if. That's not
Yeah,
any more thinking.
that's always been you. You always jump since I've known you. You jump and then whatever. You just like
Yeah, I mean,
let the
you
chips
do your
fall where they
best
may.
and then you do your
Yeah,
best and then you wait for the good things to happen, right? So that's
right.
been the way I've lived my life. So I get there and I'm scared. These tall buildings, I don't see anyone I don't see anyone from my side of the world.
Mm.
Everybody I see are all Americans, and that was really scary. And I had managed to collect a telephone number of a friend's friend who said, come over and maybe I can help you out some way or the other. So I went there, I saw Indians, and I was like, wow, I'm home.
And then what happens? Like how do you keep progressing into
Those were the days where I was, making just enough money to have almond joy, my go-to choice, literally, because it had the coconut, it had the nuts, it had the chocolate, it gave me the energy. So you know,
Do
it was the choice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and and I did all the jobs that an immigrant does. I pumped gas in a gas station, I washed vegetables. I just worked odd jobs, did everything I possibly could do to make the rent, to have a roof on your head. I did that, and then I landed a job that all of a sudden brought me back to what I really loved those days.
mm,
And I got a job in a factory, in a clothing factory, cutting the strings from inside. When you sew a garment, there is a lot of extra strings left inside, and somebody has to go and turn it inside out and clean it up. And that's the job that I got. But I was so happy because I'm doing, I'm back in my brain those days. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm back in the clothing industry. And I said, as long as I get that door opening for me, I don't care what position they start me on. I am going to get back into the clothing industry because film, photography, none of that was my interest. It was all clothing.
wow.
After I was done working that and I got myself legal in America, like legal. Now I have a work permit,
That's
and I
amazing.
can work legal jobs. I applied for a job in another company called 𝐔𝐕𝐾𝐄, and
Mm.
I started working in that company as the lowest position possible, but it didn't matter. And I worked, that was my school. I worked there from, the timings were 9 to 5, but I used to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning, and I would work till 7, 8 o'clock at night. Anyone who didn't want to do any dirty job in that company came to me and asked me if I wanted to do it. I'm like, yes, of course, I want to do it.
Well, that's the way to prove yourself and work your way up too. People see that.
I met this friend who was my best man for my wedding, Richard. And then I met another really good friend, Mark, and I learned from them. These were like Americans, and I learned from them. And then I met my wife, and I learned from her. I mean, these were the early days of being in America, and mind you, growing up in India, we don't have snow. So the first snow that I had was I was in Staten Island pumping gas at, I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. That was my first snow. I mean, I was dancing.
Oh,
So, now fast forward to the 𝐔𝐕𝐾𝐄 days, I didn't realize that in America, you have winter clothing and winter shoes.
oh God, you
You
just.
know, so here I am, innocent is bliss, right? I'm in America and it's snowing. So Ejaz is wearing a shirt, So Ejaz is wearing regular shoes. So all these things, and then I met my wife, and she was the one who taught me all of this. She kind of taught me that, hey, there is something called winter jacket.
Right, right, right.
I didn't know. I just thought that you just suck it up.
You meet your wife, you're working your way up the garment industry, and then what happens?
So I'm still learning, how to live in America. I'm not,
To this day.
even till this day. And
Wow.
so that was that. And then I worked for 𝐔𝐕𝐾𝐄 for a very long time. I went from making, 200-300 bucks a week for that company, from that company. And then all of a sudden I said to myself, this is not enough.
Mm.
My fiance at that point was like, nah, you're much more capable. I mean, she pushed me through all my entire career, and I'm going to say, if not for her push, I wouldn't be where I am.
No,
And
she's definitely a great support system. I love her.
so she says, you have to make more money. um and I'm like, okay, great. So what I do is I call up the competition of 𝐔𝐕𝐾𝐄. I go in there for an interview, and I obtain a position uh, of a CEO.
Ejaz, how do you do this? I don't understand.
I don't understand either. I just, my wife said she wanted more money. I mean, at that point, she was my fiance, so she said she wanted me to make more money, and the only way I knew how to make more money is to go and get a better job. And don't get me wrong, the learning in 𝐔𝐕𝐾𝐄 about doing every single thing where people didn't want to do the things played a huge part. So when I went for the interview, he actually wanted to hire me as a production manager, and he had heard my name, that I'm doing a lot at Jeffrey Craig.
Mhm.
But he hired me as a CEO because he said, can you be a CEO? I'm like, sure, why not? I
Wow.
can do that.
Why not?
It was amazing, great experience. Um, and then, there came a time in my life I got married. We had the house, we had the white picket fence, and, everything an American, the American dream, so to speak. I had it all. Um, and then I had a huge tragedy in my life. Now we have uh, two boys and a girl, and life was good. Life was amazing, making really good money. I mean, I literally went from making 200-300 bucks a week to making thousands of dollars per week in my paycheck. Going from there to being
You're an
CEO.
executive. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Exactly. And I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I think I carried that company really, really well for 4 years, I think, 3, 4 years. And everybody was really pleased with it.
So your tenacity pays off. You're a very hard worker. So
Yeah, so things were doing well, and I jumped from this job to another job, and I actually doubled my salary on the other job. So I was making a lot to begin with, and then I'm started making much more.
as one should. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I was happy. Things were good. We got married. We had our first son, and then we had two more children, Troy and Spencer, and Jared was the older son. And then then I lost my daughter. I She passed away, and that basically changed me.
Mhm.
I went from being this confident man who could do anything. I mean, I was unstoppable. Or at least so I thought, to questioning my own existence. I didn't know whether I made some right decisions for her life and so on and so forth.
Right.
So that was a very tough time for me.
Right.
It was about 2, 3 years. I just couldn't get over it, you know. Um, and then I questioned. I said, "What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Do I want to be in the clothing business? Is it making me happy?" And I had lost happiness in the clothing industry. But there's something that I did constantly after coming to America was I always had a camera next to me. Whether it was a professional camera or it was a consumer camera, I had a camera next to me at all times. That was my engagement gift.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
So I gave my wife an engagement ring,
Right.
um, and I actually took a loan from her to give her an engagement ring.
Well, I'm sure you've made up for that
Well, she
the
made me
times
pay much more than that. Trust me, she did. But I took a loan from her, and
Oh,
she gave me a camera because she knew I was so in love with photography and creating and so on. But I was in the clothing business, and she wanted to see me happy, and I would speak to her, and she saw the passion in photography from me. So she gave me that as a gift. So my camera was always with me.
got it.
So, here I am, and actually, we decided to leave New York and
Mm,
go to Florida. I just couldn't handle New York anymore. I couldn't handle the hustle and the bustle, and so I picked up and I went to Florida. I took
mhm.
the boys and Maxine and the family went to Florida, and I'm trying to find a job, and I can't find a job, and I'm trying to do everything possible. But the only time I felt at ease and I felt comfortable, after she passed away, was when I picked up the camera. And then it came a time that, the family needed money.
Mm,
I didn't have any money because I had stopped working.
Right.
I stopped working. I couldn't work mentally. I wasn't there. In my mind, I had already started to build the idea of being a photographer.
Okay.
What I did was I printed some photography cards,
Oh.
business cards, and I went to Coterie. Coterie is a clothing show where in the Javits Center all the designers come in, big, small, everybody's there. And I said, let me go distribute my photography cards because I'm a photographer. I had nothing. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a portfolio. I had absolutely
Yeah,
nothing. All I
you
had.
just leap. You just jump. You just dive right in all the time with anything you do, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was a photographer in my mind already. I
Right.
shared this with my wife. I said, how do I make this happen? And then here in my mind, I'm saying to myself, I am going to be the biggest photographer there is, and she's going to be so proud of me. And I had been in a good position in the clothing business, being the CEO. So there was a designer who recognized me, and I'm giving her the card, and I'm like, you want any fashion photography over here? There you go. You can give me a call. I'm going to take some pictures for you. And that's exactly what I was doing.
Wow.
She says, no, no, no. We cannot let your knowledge of the clothing industry just die because you decide you want to be a fashion photographer. I'm like, okay. And I know that we are suffering. There's no money at home at all to eat food. And
Mm.
my boys and my wife, they are in Florida. And she says, I'm going to offer you a job. You're going to come to my company and you're going to be the CEO there. And the money was so much, and I was so poor,
Wow.
so poor to a point where we had to figure out what the next day meal is going to be.
Mm.
So I took the job, but I told her something. I said, you want me to work from 9 to 5? I cannot work 9 to 5. I am going to work from 7 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. And she said, you will work from 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. I said, great. Went back to Florida, told my wife, I'm going to go do this job and I'm going to be a photographer. And my wife said, go ahead. She supported me. She like, do what you have to do. Came back to New York and I went and I rented a studio. And mind you, I don't even know how to take pictures professionally. And I rented the studio 2 blocks away from her because, I said this way I won't waste time in walking or traveling, taking the subway.
Right.
I started my studio and I used to get there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I would work it till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Whatever I had to do, make phone calls, take pictures. The first few months, there were no taking pictures. I
Mm.
was just playing with my camera. Nobody wanted to give a unknown photographer a job, but you keep hustling and hustling and hustling and hustling and hustling, and it's at the end of the day it's New York.
Right.
It is America, don't get me wrong, but it is New York. There's a big difference there.
So what was your first professional photography job?
I managed those days to land a model who was a working model who used to get paid $5,000, and I did my talk here and there, and she came to work for me. So here I am. Now she walks in and she's like, where's makeup and hair? I'm like, what is that? I said, you put on your own makeup, you do your own hair. And she said, I expected that. And she says, are you going to light? I said, I have these lights and I had rented these lights and I'm trying to make these lights work and I didn't know how to make them work because I didn't know how to light. I didn't even know how to turn it on and shoot it in the right direction so I could capture an image. And I'm fumbling and fumbling and fumbling. And she caught on to it and she's like, I don't know anything about lighting, but you hired me for 8 hours now. You might as well get one image at least. And then she helped me tweak the lights and
Oh
do it.
wow, that's amazing.
And that's what happened. I did that first job. I was sweating all throughout. I was nervous because I know that she knows that I don't know anything.
Right.
I said, I got to better my game. And I started to learn from this photographer John Shaw. Now, John Shaw is a wildlife photographer, and
Mm.
I am trying to penetrate the fashion industry as a fashion photographer. But for some reason, whatever he said, it got into my head easier than it getting into some other teachers.
Right. So he resonated with, how you're learning photography.
Everything. I read every single book he had to write, and he's written a lot. Everybody should go see John Shaw, my hero.
Mm.
What an amazing photographer. And but he was a wildlife photographer. So I took everything I learned from him, his books. I didn't get to speak to him, he wouldn't speak to me. So I learned from his books, I learned from his videos, his VHS videos. It was
Oh, wow. That's a throwback, Ejaz.
So I learned from everything. I went back and I read those books 50 times until I knew every single word in that book. I
Mm.
saw his videos so many times, and then I started to build my book. And there again, people have helped me in that journey like crazy. Of course, starting off with my family, my wife and my two boys, and then there are other people in my life that they come in your life to help you, like Darren Judkins. He was a booker at an agency, and Talani, who also a amazing booker at Q Model Management. These were the two. And then there's another gentleman, Rex, who was a booker at Click Models. And Darren, Talani, and Rex were the only three who said, okay, we'll give you models.
Mm.
And then they gave me models for free. And I started to shoot them and shoot them and shoot them and shoot them and shoot them. I mean, I learned about makeup. Models used to come. I couldn't afford makeup artists, and nobody wanted to play with me because my photographs were horrible. So I used to just go buy makeup and try and futz around with makeup myself. You know, I
Really?
I'm not a makeup artist, but
Right, right, right.
the whole thing was to make the model believe I'm so good. If she believed I'm good, she would give amazing emotions in camera. That happened. I had a good image. Everything else could be correct. Emotions you cannot replicate, right? You cannot fix that in post.
Right.
Everything else you can fix in post. So my goal was to impress my models.
Do you remember the first image you were like, oh, I got it. Finally, it happened. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah. I mean, I used to talk nonsense to the models,
Uh-huh.
literally nonsense, just to get that emotion. Whatever the emotion was, and whatever triggered the model, it was about the emotion in the photograph. Without that emotion, nothing is there. So I did makeup for them. I did wardrobe designing for them. I did my own lighting from learning. So one of the ways I started to learn how to do lighting is I got the best of the best, like Steven Meisel. I
Mhm.
had his assistant assist me, and then
Really?
just
How
pick.
did how did you manage that?
You simply ask people to help you,
Yeah.
and you will be surprised how many good humans are in this world.
Mm,
And the key on that is to pay it forward.
right, of course.
I've been helped all throughout my career. I've been helped by a gentleman, Michael Ranzulli. He was my professor at FIT because, all of a sudden I wanted to get into the clothing business, and I went into the fashion industry. So I went into school. He's still in my life. He's still my mentor. He's still, the person I go to for any problems. Hey, Michael, what should I do?
You went from not knowing anything to actually photographing in Vogue and, like talk about that.
I asked to be in Vogue, and they called me and they said, "Can you shoot for us?" And I was like, "Sure," and I did it. Um, I did many magazines. I worked for many magazines. I worked for many designers. And I said, I want to shoot for this company. Let's make it happen. I mean, I'm making it simple. It's not so simple. You just keep asking.
Yeah, and you
When
keep
you
trying.
just keep
Yeah.
asking and you never stop asking for help.
You're a well-known photographer, you're gracing, you're doing Vogue, and you also work in tandem with your fashion line. You created Tangerine NYC. When did that, how did that come into the mix?
I think all women look amazing in jeans, a white shirt, and simple shoes, less makeup, less this, less that, less hair stuff, so on. And I wasn't seeing that in the industry.
Mm.
And it started with that. I started to see that. I made an imaginary girl in my head, and I actually called her Carly.
I remember Carly. Hmm.
I called her Carly, and Carly used to wear jeans and she used to wear some amazing blouses, light blouses. And I mentioned that to my wife, and my wife said, create a line. And I'm like, yeah, what's there to stop? What's stopping me to create a line? Let's create a line. So we created a line. I created this line. We ran that company for about 6 years, clothing company, and it was all silk blouses and dresses. I mean, I made it more than just Carly. Carly was an imaginary thing,
Hmm.
girl in my mind. And she was a brunette. My wife is a blonde, but she was a brunette. She was
Okay.
she wasn't my wife. My wife used to be jealous with her, but besides the point, I used to design for her. I used to design for everything that looked good on her, the blouses, the dresses, the this, the that. And that's all it took, is to design for Carly. And then we would, some way or the other, I found a way to put it on paper. And from paper, it went on to pattern making. And from pattern making, it went on to, the sourcing all the fabrics and making the garments coming here. And we were in about 600 stores in the United States.
I mean, really? Come on.
Um, it did well from the get go.
Mm.
We actually were on the cover of InStyle magazine with Kourtney Kardashian. Uh,
I mean, really?
and yeah, we had Heidi Klum also wearing our
Wow.
blouses.
Just to
Tiger
name drop
Woods'
just a
wife.
little bit. On time out. When does this come into play? You created a freaking magazine.
Oh my God.
Okay, guys, a magazine, a publisher. He becomes a publisher. When does this happen? I mean, C7. It's called C7. Okay.
So I mean, one of the purpose of that magazine was to have photographers, be able to tell their story and how they shoot and so on. So I got lucky with that. We did a magazine and and we published it and did what I mean. It was the simple way of, you want to do something, you go ahead and do it. The problem with me is that I decide that I have to do too many things. So I decided to do a magazine, and there it was. I had no intentions of changing anything. I was happy with the clothing line. I was happy with the fashion photography. And then a friend of mine, she was getting old in my industry. She was 24 or 25 years old, and her modeling career, so to speak, was going downhill. And she said, "What am I gonna do? And can you help me? Can you?" I was directing ads and advertisements and stuff. And she's like, "Can you make a film for me?" I'm like, "I've never made a film before." And she's like, "If anyone can do it, you can." I'm like, "Okay, great. Let's make a film." So I write a story. The story was actually, I wrote that story more so to tell my family that an apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, because dad filmmaker, brother filmmaker, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, cousin, call, no matter what, they're all filmmakers. And I said, if I'm going to make a first film, let me make a statement to my family that, hey, I can do this too. It's not just you guys. I created the film, finished the film, and I gave it to her. I said, do what you want to do with it. Now take this and go, become the actress that you want to become. And then maybe a few months later, she calls me yelling and screaming and shouting. And I'm like, everything okay? And she's like, we got into Cannes Film Festival. I'm like, what is that? I didn't know what Cannes Film Festival was. And then that film went on to, like, I think we won 9 different awards. And all of a sudden I got swollen in my head and I said, I'm better than Steven Spielberg.
The film that he's talking about is called, that was his first short film. It's called Legacy.
I didn't know how to do anything.
But you did.
I had no clue. I have a friend, Zach Krishvan. He's a director. He's an amazing director. I asked him. I said, "How do I direct this film? What should I do?" And he's like, "Why don't you hire me?" I said, "Sure." So he came on board as a assistant director, and he helped me write the film. And we made this film, and it went to such amazing places, and we won so many awards. And all of a sudden, I am here doing my fashion photography and doing my filming and the clothing business, and now I'm better than Steven Spielberg.
Okay, so you went on from doing the short to doing this feature film called The Telling. Tell me what inspired you to write The Telling.
My wife is Jewish and my boys are Jewish. I have learned so much about Judaism, about their culture, and one thing that always comes out is the Holocaust.
Mm.
But I have seen so many films about the Holocaust, and there's no way you can compete with big directors like that. Though my head was swollen and I thought I could. But I chose the topic of the Holocaust because I was touched by all the information I got firsthand from my Jewish family.
Mm.
And I didn't want to make the film about the Holocaust. I wanted to make the film about a family that lived through the times of Holocaust. The budget was insane.
Mhm.
And when I say the budget was insane, I had Sarah Romer, who is a very accomplished actress herself, a wonderful human being. I met her when she was modeling in New York. So she became a part. I called her and asked for help. She came in, and then I called Lynn Cohen, and she also came in. I mean, this is you're talking about a director who thinks is a director only in his mind, right? I'm not really a director. I did a short film and it went to Cannes Film Festival, but I called these big people and they all said yes. They all said, sure, we'll help you. And Lynn Cohen agreed to do it. Sarah Romer agreed to do it.
Right.
Georgia Angel also agreed to do it. You're talking about two Emmy Award winners just helping out this immigrant from India who's living in New York and doing this. So I don't think they helped me because of Ejaz Khan, so to speak. They helped me because they were wonderful people and they just wanted to help. Unfortunately, that film was filmed and then Lynn Cohen passed away and it went to the box. Literally, it's sitting in my hard drives and we didn't do anything about it. But that was film's life. I couldn't do much more with it. The budget wasn't there. There are things that I learned in there that were insane, and it was an amazing. It was a very expensive school, so instead of going to NYU, I created a film.
Mm.
There was a scene in that, and I rented the New Jersey Transit.
I remember it well because that's the year we met. Yeah, I remember.
I
Uh-huh.
rented the entire New Jersey Transit for 4 hours. I don't want to throw any numbers at people, but it was an arm and a leg, and they gave me 4 stations. So I could take my train for 4 hours,
Your train. Yeah.
and I could go back and forth as many times as I wanted. I did lose a lot of money doing that just one scene. By the time it came to the editor said, I'm not going to use any of this. I said, you're right. And we didn't use any of that. So just don't blow money because your brain seems to tell you that you're bigger than Steven Spielberg.
And then in comes 2022 with Before They Vanish. You've gone on to receive positive attention in the horse community. It's gone on to, to be selected in a lot of film festivals. And now it went into distribution and it's available on streaming platforms. I mean, I can't with you. I can't. You see a goal and you just set it and you just go for it, which is admirable. That's awesome.
There is no 99% in filmmaking or in anything you do in life, right? Everything has to be 100%. At least that's what I believe in.
Talk about Before They Vanish. How did that come to be? Like, how did that even start?
We stumbled upon this amazing person called Manda. Manda has a conservancy called the Canna Foundation, and she supports horses and so on. So I got in touch with her. I was speaking with her, and then she turned around and she said, "Shame on you! You're donating to all these French horses because I used to go to France to photograph
Right,
horses.
right.
Why don't you donate to the American horses? We need help here." She put me in touch with a gentleman in North Dakota called Frank Kunz.
Mm,
So I went to Frank. Actually, Manda was the one who arranged for me to go to North Dakota, and I did. I went there. He had 300 horses, and I was used to me seeing 85 horses in France
right.
most, and now I see 300 horses. I was drooling. So when I was there, I learned about Frank's life, and one thing led to another, to another, to another, and I said that let's make a film for this on the subject. I mean, he is a Vietnam veteran, so he goes to Vietnam. He gets cancer because of Agent Orange, comes back, doesn't know what to do with his life, buys one horse. Today he has 300 horses. He's dying of cancer. No one knows what to do with these horses. Bottom line, that was the story. We started to make a documentary because in my brain I didn't want to make a feature film after what
Mm,
happened with the telling. And I went back and I filmed a documentary with Frank. And I came back to New York. I saw the footage. It was horrible. I went back again, did the same thing. I did it 5 times. No, I
mm,
did it 4 times. And the fourth time, it was all documentary, documentary. It wasn't working for me. So then on the fifth time, I said, let's make a script out of it. Let me change things around a little bit. So I changed things around. I kept parts of the true story in the film. And then you remember I went with you with the with production to go and film the film. So
yeah.
we went there, we filmed the film, came back, I looked at it, and I had made such horrible mistakes, you know. So I dumped all that footage too.
Mhm.
And then on the sixth one, I said, let's go back. I called them up and I said, I'm going to keep taking until we get the right shot. Are you guys willing to do it? They said yes. I went there. Within 3 months, I came back with the footage and we have a film. It took
Right.
me 9 months to do this, post production. Jesse, who is another angel in my life, helped me through the editing, through everything else. People who know me know that Jesse's always there for me.
Yeah, where there's Ejaz, there's Jesse.
So, so Jesse was the one who did the editing and moved it along and got the film. We got the film into TV, into iTunes, Amazon, Google Prime. Wanted to have a theatrical release on that, but I am very young in the film business, and I don't know much about distribution.
Mm,
And I didn't realize that when I was signing my distribution deal, I was basically signing away the life of Before They Vanish of my film, which today, after being burned, I would never ever sign a distribution deal the way I did it. And that's not to say that the distributors or my sales company, MPX, are bad people. They do what they do and they do the best that they can with the small directors and producers, they don't realize how much they hurt us. So I
Mm.
had a very bad experience in the distribution aspect of things, along with the sales aspect of Before They Vanish, and I learned from it. And the next time, they will never be involved in my filmmaking career ever.
So your next film, you spoke about it, Trapped,
Mhm.
again set in North Dakota.
Yeah.
How did Trap come to be, and what made you want to talk about this topic?
So Trap is about sex abuse and sex trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say that it started off when I was on the film sets of Before They Vanish. I There was a girl that kept coming to the set. I started speaking with her, and then I said to her, I said, "Why don't you do something better with your life?" And I'm trying to be this person to help her, which I didn't know. And instead, she helped me. She told me her story,
Mm.
and when she told me her story, I was taken aback, and I think that you know the abuse, because of the lack of conversations parents have, I should say, with their children, the abuse happens and they don't know. Sexual abuse, I'm speaking about. And the trafficking is the trafficking, that's the business, that is a bigger subject. But in this film, we are talking about sex abuse at home, and who you bring home matters a lot. And it's about trafficking. And she gave me her story, and I always would like to make films that have a bigger purpose than my film itself. And I believe that this topic is a very big purpose. And if I can shed some small little light on it, that would be really helpful. I mean, that it would be helpful to parents to see the film. It would be helpful to people to see this film, because it happens in our backyard. It happens in America. It's happening here in our backyard, and it's still a very hush hush conversation. It's if I believe if there's one girl or one young guy who decides to stay home for the right reasons,
Mm-hmm.
or decides to do something about it by speaking to someone who he trusts or she trusts, and does not run away from home, that is going to be a huge success for me.
All your films have, have a special topic, and you make it your business to talk about um things that matter to not only to you but to the world, that it affects the world on a global scale, which is pretty profound, and not a lot of people like to take that on, so kudos to you, Ejaz.
Thank you.
um so with that said, everyone's anticipating a release date. When can we expect Trap to be coming out, and in what avenues? I know you're gonna do, you know, you talked about streaming services, but you do plan to premiere it in theaters, correct?
We have acquired movie theaters that are helping us, uh, and have agreed for us to be in the movie theaters. So I would like to take the first 2 months of the film and do nothing with it.
Mm.
I just want to let it sit in the drives and do absolutely nothing. I'm going to focus on wildlife photography, and I'm making plans to go up to the Arctic again, to the North Pole. And then when I come back, the plan of action is that I'm going to release in 50 movie theaters in the United States.
What? Oh
Yes.
my
Out
god.
of out of 50, we have acquired, I'm going to say 14. There's a young lady called Ashley Glass who was my line producer while we were producing it. Now she's helping us with marketing, and she's doing a phenomenal job. So through her, she can give you a better number as to how many movie theaters we have acquired. And once that number is 50, we will be happy. So far it's 14, and we're going to start releasing it in March of 2024 in movie theaters. I believe I'm going to do that for about 4 to 5 months. Then I'm going to do DVDs, which everybody I speak to in the film industry says DVDs.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, what?
DVDs is a big, 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 big market.
Really?
And once I'm done with that, I will then start to give it to my distributor who is going to put it on the streaming channels such as iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. People ask me, don't you want to be in Netflix? And I'm going to say the same thing. I
Mm.
want to play with people that are willing to play with me. I don't want to play with people who are much, much, much ahead in caliber than I am. So, Netflix, I am not going to go to. I don't want to. Neither will I go to Hulu. I will stay with Amazon, and I will stay with iTunes and Google Play. And more than all of this, which is just purely business, I plan on giving away the film to organizations. So I'm working with some organizations where I'm going to say to them, you put it in a movie theater, and all the revenue from that movie theater will go to them. Organizations that support the abused, give it to them to run it in movie theaters for a day or for 2 days or for a week. Whatever revenue is collected by the movie theater will go to them 100%. I don't even want a cent from there.
So we have film questions from the public. So are you ready?
Sure.
Chris from White Plains, New York. What is the subject matter that appeals most to you artistically?
I like my subject matter to make my mind not think of anything else, right? So I want that subject matter to put me in a state of mind that I'm just totally daydreaming or just thinking about that and nothing else matters to me. That's the first thing. And I would like the subject matter to somehow enhance somebody else's life.
Okay, so question number 2, we have Luce from Brooklyn, New York. Yay, Brooklyn in the house. Um, with your independent productions, what kind of support do you think is the most crucial to have on set or location with a small budget film?
You are a small production. That does not mean you accept anyone who wants to work with you, right? So, my way of choosing people for my production is, can they give more to my production more than I can? And if they can give more than I can, whether they are technically knowledgeable or they're not, it doesn't matter. I bring them on.
Oh, this is a cute little question. Ashley from Mandan, North Dakota asked, if you could have any A-list actor star in your next film, who would it be?
I think Leonardo DiCaprio is just an unbelievable actor, but I would never play with him until I reach his level.
Mm.
So, will I want an A-list actor in my film tomorrow because we are doing another film called Reality? I won't. I won't. Even if he comes in and he says to me, "Hey, Ejaz, I want to work with you," you know,
You're gonna say
I'm,
no, Leo.
I'm,
No.
I'm going to say no to him because I am not at his level yet. I am
Mm.
not at his caliber of work. I mean, that is a caliber of work that is, just imagine being the best, one of the best in the world, because there are many great actors, but being one of the best in the world. We have 7 billion, 8 billion people. I'm not good with numbers, but that's how many people. And he is one of the top guys. And here I come along. and I say I want an A-list actor in my film and I want it to be him, it insults him. And I
Mm.
would never do that. I need to up my game to come to that level where I can knock on people's doors of that level and say, hey, I want to work with you. Until then, I'm happy with the people I'm working with.
For Trapped, how was the audition process and like choosing your actors? And Zoom was our best friend.
Every single actor that has been on the set of Trap has rehearsed with me personally on Zoom for
Mhm,
a minimum of 3 to 4 months. Because I am a young director and I don't know all the things I should be knowing.
mhm,
So I leaned on my actors, and the only way to lean on them was to know them. My protagonist is, she was 18, now she's 19, Lydia Pence. And she was not supposed to be that. She was not supposed to get the job either. But I had someone else, and that person wasn't giving me 100% time wise.
mm,
People start to think that they are someone, and they don't have the time to rehearse a film that is my baby. And I'm sorry, I can't pass my baby to you if I don't think that you're the safe, right person.
mhm,
And Lydia, on the other hand, was willing to rehearse with me at 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the evening or whatever, through Zoom, of course, she's in Washington. Is someone who taught me something. I, you're on board. Simple. I'm growing, you'll grow with me.
So I have Shelly from Queens, New York. Do you think shooting a short film is harder than a feature film?
The only difference is in the stamina. If
Mm,
you have the stamina to go for a year, because I believe at my level, it takes me about a year at least to make a film, a feature film. If you have the stamina to go, I should say from start to scratch, it has taken Trapped 2.5 years. From the time I put my pen to the paper and started writing a story until I am going to finish, it's going to be 2.5, 3 years. If you have the stamina to go, because you will come across times where you're going to doubt yourself.
mm,
You will come across times where you're going to say to yourself, is this right? There will be questions in your mind. Your family will throw some questions at you. Your friends will throw some questions at you. You will throw some questions at yourself. And if you have the stamina to overcome all those questions, then go for a feature film. Technical stuff will fall in its own place.
Ooh, this next question, Ejaz, I think it's like one of the most important ones I think we've asked so far. We have Jeff from Fargo, North Dakota. He asked, when working with new and upcoming stars from your film Trapped, how amazing was it to have Jeff and June as part of your cast? Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for that question.
You, June, of course, we had planned for, but Jeff was the child that was not planned. Here is Jeff, who is not an actor, he's a doctor, and he's dabbling in acting. I was a little scared,
Hmm.
but Jeff's capability of giving something 100% impressed me. And your capability of giving something 100% always impresses me. If he's willing to give me 100%, I'm already a winner.
Jeff was my partner in the films. Can I tell you, I had such an awesome time working with him and rehearsing with him. I mean, like we want to like create our own like little sketch comedy or like um we want to work together again. I mean, it was so awesome working with
You
him.
guys should, because I think number one, you guys make a great team together.
Yeah.
And number two, I think, Jeff, what are you doing in North Dakota? I don't mean I don't mean to say it that way. No, no, no. Sorry, sorry. What I'm trying to say is, you're hidden. You
Yeah,
are
he's
that
very talented guy.
you are that gem that's still covered with mud.
All joking aside, Ejaz, what is up next for Ejaz Khan? What's going on? What's down the line for you?
I'm working on a film called Reality. And the reason why I call it reality, it's because these days there are so many challenges that young ones and even people of my age and older and everybody goes through these challenges in their minds. Sometimes they speak about it, sometimes they don't.
Mm.
It's not about mental illness clinically, so to speak, but it's about the challenges we have in our day-to-day lives, and we don't know how to cope with it because we have this amazing computer over here, but we don't have the manual, we don't know how to use it.
Those who have not followed Ejaz or myself, definitely go on to the social platforms and follow us. Ejaz, give your handles.
It's Ejaz Khan Cinema, EJAZKHAN cinema.com, or wildlife will be Ejaz Khan photography.com, or fashion will be Ejaz Khan fashion photography.com.
And you can catch me on Instagram, JuneMarie_D. And my go-to web series is the go-to-webseries.com. Yay. So thank you so much for this interview. I'm sure people got to know a little bit more about who Ejaz Khan is, the film director, the writer, the photographer, the garment industry exec, the wait, hold on, there's more. The magazine publisher. I'm sure I'm forgetting more, but everyone got to know a little bit more about Ejaz Khan. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye guys. Take care.